Now, once you've mapped and identified the data you're trying to protect, you can move on to managing security risks. I'll be absolutely honest, this can get a bit overwhelming. So to help you get through, I have a core principle for you to stick to and a set of steps to help you keep on track. In short, don't get overwhelmed. Think of it this way. How can you eat an elephant? And the answer is one bite at a time. But of course, try to start with the juiciest parts. Our objective here is to effectively prioritize our risk responses, and your goal should be to develop a working risk map. To get to this point, you need to start wide and narrow down. This is the process my team and I have developed to simplify risk management. So, step one, identify your school's risk appetite. Where is your school community more comfortable accepting risk? An example might be connected to innovation, for example, experimenting with new teaching methods, technologies, or even programs. Conversely, where does your school have very little tolerance for risk? Examples here could be health and safety of students, or a breach of student and community personal information. Every school is slightly different, and this will become super important in prioritizing your efforts. Step two, identify your information and technology assets. This includes things like student, staff, and family data, financial information and plans, devices, firewalls, routers, switches, and the list goes on. Spoiler alert, there is no easy way to make this list, so I suggest you start walking around your school and just listing what you see. This might sound crazy, but you have to start somewhere. And as I said before, you have to start wide in order to prioritize and narrow down your focus. Thirdly, identify risks by considering what could happen to each asset. Could it be lost, stolen, broken, breached, or even maybe corrupted? Start to identify the threats and vulnerabilities for each risk. So what is a threat? Well, it's a negative event that could happen to one of your assets. What circumstances might lead to that threat being realized? These are your vulnerabilities. Now, let me give you an example. Let's consider an example risk that could be unauthorized access to staff mailboxes. In this case, the threat is mailboxes being accessed through stolen credentials, but one vulnerability that could lead to the risk being realized is the lack of multi-factor authentication, which would have otherwise prevented access. Step four, define the likelihood and impact of each risk. So I recommend using a percentage score for likelihood. For example, very low could be 10 to 20%, ranging up to very high being 90 to 100%. Then establish a criteria to assess the impact. For example, severe impact could include disruption to the entire school with no workarounds, or maybe over $1 million of financial cost of an incident and response. This brings us to step five, which is prioritizing your risks. Now, based on your assessment, give each risk a score out of 5 for likelihood and for impact. And now you can populate your risk map, as you can see here on the screen. The way I do this is a count of the number of risks in each box on an interactive Power BI report, and I work from the top right backwards in terms of priority. This is when you need to validate with your board and your SLT, which we'll cover in the next section. But you can focus now on your highest priority risks and work backwards. At this point, I recommend considering each risk one by one and applying one of the 4 T's. So will you treat the risk by putting in a control or a mitigation? Will you tolerate the risk by accepting and monitoring over time? Will you transfer the risk by outsourcing to a third party? Or perhaps terminate the risk by shutting down that activity completely? There are many examples of treating, tolerating, and terminating risks, but increasingly schools are exploring how to transfer information security risks out. We support a number of examples with our own systems at Education Horizons. Cloud hosting for Engage, Sector, Synergetic, Zunia, and Assetware allows us to transfer and manage many security challenges centrally. And you can see from the screen some of the challenges with on-premise hosting, and hopefully some of the benefits will resonate with you too. And these might include being able to host the system in a fully secure infrastructure, having security updates applied automatically, knowing that behind the hosting are a team of experts that do this day in, day out, and being in a position where your IT team can focus more on supporting teachers and less on managing infrastructure, which is something I was extremely passionate about when I was IT director for TCAT in the UK. 24/7 infrastructure monitoring is always very useful. And of course, having scalable architecture that grows with you. Now, obviously, there are many benefits to the cloud, and security benefits are, in my opinion, at the top of the tree. And the shift to cloud is a great example of transferring security risks to a certified third party. We've also integrated the Stripe global payments platform into Synergetic and Engage, with Zunia coming soon. And this is helping shift critical personal financial data risks away from schools. The shift to online payments is significant in helping schools to avoid holding and protecting personal financial data. And through Stripe, schools are able to run both ad hoc payments and recurring payment plans without ever holding parent financial details. Because Stripe is a big global third party, they bring the highest standard of data security to their systems, and that includes disputes management and fraud protection options. And it's another great example of transferring financial data security risks to a certified third party.